Good morning. Today, my guests are Betsy Shiverick, the producer, and Dave Simonds, the director of the documentary film The Hoy Boys. Um, Betsy, I'll start with you. I know this is a very personal story for you, and I know the audiences that have seen the film really appreciate how much you're willing to share about your family, um, warts and all. Uh, any regrets at this point that you were so forthcoming?
Oh, none whatsoever. This was almost like a way to memorialize my father in on film and to share it with my friends and family and to highlight his unbelievable career and his personality and his character. And it, if you didn't know my father, you would after this film. And it's a really great thing to be able to show my friends and say this is what he was like.
And that really comes through. And I think because you're so um, authentic, it's not just a hagiography about this great man, but it's real. We're all imperfect beings, um, and your willingness to share that really makes us feel like we have a glimpse into who he was.
Right. And you know, what I like so much about the film and him in the film is he was so passionate about what he did. He loved his job at the Star. He really that was the sort of the best times of his life. And so to see that in film and to show that, you know, when you do something you're really passionate about, you really do it well. And it's sort of a nice all around lesson to learn.
Oh, it's
When
a great message. Dave,
Hmm.
the archival photographs you work with and you share in the film are extraordinary. Um, and I know for first-time filmmakers or new filmmakers, the archival piece, researching archive, finding it, using it, organizing it, can be extraordinarily challenging. Do you have any tips for uh, people starting out?
I will just being aware that that is at least half the work was finding things. I have to say, with this project, when I first met Betsy, she walked in with a large cardboard box filled with envelopes and prints, and that it was mind blowing. Little envelopes of negatives that said Beatles first visit, you know.
Wow.
So that's an unusual perk of this particular project that Betsy had her father's archives. And but that's having a negative or a print is not the end of the job. Now, how do until it's a digital file in a hard drive, you can't use it. And so we were fortunate enough to work with an amazing digital archivist at Williams College who was the digital archivist at Rolling Stone magazine. And she was extremely capable and spent a long time digitizing these archives. So, that
And
was
in
a big part
addition
of the
to
job.
there was archival material that appeared not to have come from Betsy's father. How did you source that, and how did you make the choices of what to include and what not to include?
I literally had about 800 images from Betsy, literally, So then we went out to Arizona and met with Tom's twin brother Frank's family, and they had not that volume, but they had a lot of really important stuff there, which they were gracious enough to donate. And I'll tell you a funny story, Andrew. I digitized things that no one had ever seen. Shots of the Beatles when they did they did the Ed Sullivan show. The next day they were to fly to D.C., but there was a snowstorm, so they took a train. And Tom was assigned, you got to go down and meet these. There's these kids from Liverpool. You got to go down and take pictures of them. And he didn't know who they were, but he did his job and got
Right.
some shots of them getting off the train, and then went to the press conference. and then was offered tickets, and he said, I'm busy.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, yeah. But I then, to do due diligence, I knew that the Washington Post stuff was that's Frank's work was owned by Getty Images. I then and so I thought, well, I'll introduce myself by saying, hey, I have a bunch of images that you don't have, but that you
Ah.
actually control. And I thought that would create a nice, warm relationship. They then charged us for the images I gave them. So anyway,
Well,
it's
that's why they've
brutal.
been in business for a very long time.
Yeah, it's brutal out there.
Right.
So,
That's funny. When you were just another question on the archival material. When you were sorting through images, did it come to a point that you were able to just tell aesthetically or have a pretty good guess which was Tom's and which was Frank's photographs? Were you able to discern their styles enough that you could immediately pinpoint who was who?
well, I knew because they were in separate bins,
Right.
but as you worked on them, you did very quickly get to see their different styles, and I think we talk about this in the film.
Yes.
Tom is a real get the shot guy. Let me get up close to my subject. And he was an incredibly gracious guy that people enjoyed being around. And Frank approached it. He was more of an artist. He was thinking more about the composition and how to use black and white artfully. I think that interested him more than it did Tom. Tom's like, there's a fire over on this avenue, and I got to go get shots of the fire. And
Right.
but he broke down doors, he got close to his subjects, and consequently, he captured amazing images
As they're happening. Yeah,
of Winston Churchill
right,
with a huge smile giving him the victory sign.
right.
And
No, the immediacy of Tom's photographs are mesmerizing. And then, the way you describe Frank's as more taken with an artist's eye. I mean, that's at a period that photojournalism, as we learned from the film, wasn't considered an art form. It was just a add-on to a story. But, these both these men made it so much more than that.
yeah,
Uh, Betsy, back to you. Do you have any guesses as to, I mean, we now live in an age where everyone has an iPhone or some other kind of phone. And so everyone feels like he or she is a photographer. Do you have any sense of how your father would respond to the current world where people are posting on Instagram and every other site, and most of them are not photographers. Most of them are just,
Oh,
you
I
know,
can tell you one thing. He didn't own a phone, and he wouldn't probably have owned a phone. I bet if he was still alive today, he wouldn't have looked at Instagram. He wouldn't have cared about Instagram. He wouldn't have wanted to post anything, his own thing. He didn't have any interest in any of that. He was asked all the time, after his newspaper career, to cover things like weddings and things like that. And he just would say no. But social media would have pretty much turned him off big time. Yeah, I mean, I don't think he would have gotten involved whatsoever. He relied on my mother for all cell phone type of things. He just didn't even want to own one.
And what about in terms of what do you think his opinion would have been about I mean, in when he was um, at work as a photojournalist, I mean, the image he caught or the images he caught really were the news. And I think he tried to show what was going on at the moment, as Dave was saying. Whereas now, people are photographing themselves to create a narrative, create, not necessarily photographing themselves in the moment as much as using the moment to create a moment. How would he have felt about that?
Well, I think one of the reasons why he did what he did was creating things in the moment was because of that camera he used was so difficult to maneuver. You know, he had to recharge it each time and pull plastic off and bring the holder out. And so you really had to find the moment and grab it, as opposed to now where you can click away 1,000 times and just pick the one that works. But
Right.
I think speed graphic camera really, kind of determined how he was able to get these shots. He really had to be there, be present. It's with the Kennedy and lights photo, and I love how in the film we show that frame of that fabulous photograph he took of the prize winning with Kennedy and the lights turning
Yeah.
around, and the next frame Kennedy's off the stage. And so, I think that's his that limited him, but it also gave him the in the moment force, that he had
Right.
to get.
And you don't get a second chance.
You don't get a second
Right.
chance, whereas
Yeah.
today you get 400 chances.
Exactly, in a millisecond.
Yeah.
Dave, do you I mean it's a challenge to create a film that's really about two men and their age when both of them are deceased. How did you balance using their work, using interviews, using what you could find about them to tell their story when they weren't there to tell their story themselves?
Well, it's an unscripted documentary, meaning I didn't write out what the story would be. I just went and hung out with people who were really close to them. And once I had an early assemblage, I'd show it to a few people whose opinions I value. And it was a very interesting thing happened where some people were, you know what, I'm not so into their personal story. I want more about photography and journalism. And that's what got me juiced up. And another person whose intelligence I value would say, enough of the newspaper and photography stuff. I get that. I want that in there, but I need more about them personally. So I realized pretty quickly I had to satisfy both camps.
Right.
And that
Well,
became a real purposeful thing. So,
no,
you
and
know,
that really comes out in the climax of the film. I mean, the dramatic moment when we learn that Frank waited for Tom to arrive before uh, dying. I
yeah.
mean, without knowing their personal history, that wouldn't have had the effect it did.
Yeah. And, I think people, we all have, I'm kind of interested in people's public face versus I wonder what they're like when they're alone at home, we all have complicated personal family stories, and this is a powerful one, and I thought it was an important story to tell. And then what really juiced me up about the flip side, I felt they represent or they can be a wonderful guide to a pre-digital time, and that there would be some value in just sitting back in that time and thinking about how the world worked and how journalism worked and the media. I felt that was a gift we could give our audience. So I don't know.
And I think it is. I mean, I mean, I I recall, and I guess both of you recall a pre-digital age, but many have no conception of what that was
Yeah,
like. I mean, I
my
think my
kids, my kids don't
right.
know anything. Yeah,
Oh yeah. I mean, one of my favorite sequences is the photograph being taken, I guess, on the White House steps or the Capitol steps, and then the series of people that needed to run the negative to be developed to make it in time. I mean, it.
how you got the inaugural shot
Yes,
on
correct.
the noon edition
Right.
of the front page. Yeah,
It's
unbelievable.
extraordinary. I mean, those aren't challenges we face, certainly other challenges today, but those challenges we do not face today. And so I mean, I think it's all the more important in this day and age to know where we have been to appreciate the pros and cons of where we are today.
Mm.
So I thank you both very much for your time.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I think The Hoy Boys is must see for anyone interested in journalism, in photography, in independent film and documentary. It's a joy to work on this film, and let's hope many more people get to see it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew.
Bye.
Bye.